It's funny. Just the other day, I was trying to reset a password for this online store, and their chatbot was surprisingly helpful, like eerily good at understanding what I needed. It got me thinking about all those headlines you sent over about AI, some a little more out there than others. Are we really on the verge of some AI apocalypse, like some are saying?
Yeah. It's easy to get caught up in the hype, isn't it? A lot of what we're seeing in those headlines, it usually refers to artificial general intelligence, or AGI for short.
Well,
Think fully self-aware machines like in the movies. But what we actually have right now is quite different.
right. It seems like every other day there's some new story about AI taking over another part of our lives.
Exactly. And while those advancements are significant, they're really more in the category of artificial narrow intelligence, or ANI. Powerful, yes, but only within very specific tasks. Like that chatbot you mentioned, great at one thing, but you wouldn't expect it to compose a symphony.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's like comparing, I don't know, like a calculator that can solve complex equations to a mathematician who can actually understand the concepts behind them. Both are impressive, but not really the same thing.
Precisely. And this is a really crucial distinction as we navigate this whole AI revolution.
Speaking of which, the source material mentions revolutions driven by technology, like the Industrial Revolution back in the day. Is what's happening with AI really on that scale, you think?
It's a question worth thinking about. This particular moment in AI is unique, and that's because of three key factors coming together at the same time. First, we have incredibly cheap computing power that's available everywhere. We also have these massive amounts of data to learn from. And finally, we have vastly improved algorithms capable of actually processing all of that data.
So it's like all the pieces have finally fallen into place for AI to, really take off.
Exactly. See, previous times when people were excited about AI, it never quite worked out. One or more of those elements were missing. It's like trying to bake a cake without all the ingredients.
And speaking of ingredients, one of the sources goes into detail about a key ingredient in today's AI world: GPUs. Those things that make our video games look so amazing. It seems they're now playing a critical role in powering AI.
Absolutely. GPUs, you see, were originally designed for parallel processing, handling tons of pixels at the same time to create those awesome graphics we see in games. But it turns out that same capability is ideal for the kind of complex math that underpins AI, particularly deep learning.
Okay, I have to admit, even with all the stuff you shared, it still feels kind of like magic sometimes. How does math, even with superpowered GPUs, turn into something that can write poems or beat us at chess?
I get it. The process can seem almost mystical, I'll grant you that. But at its core, AI, especially machine learning, is really all about math.
Okay, so demystify it for us. How does math become something that can write a poem or beat you at chess?
Let's take that house price prediction example from the report. Imagine trying to teach a computer how much a house is worth. You feed it tons of data, square footage, number of bedrooms, location, and of course the actual sale price of other houses. This is called supervised learning, by the way.
So you're basically, what, showing the computer a bunch of flashcards. This house with these features sold for this much, and over time it starts to see the patterns.
Exactly. The algorithm figures out the relationship between those features and the price and learns what makes a house more or less expensive. Now take that concept and apply it to even more complex problems. That's where deep learning comes in.
Right, like those diagrams with the interconnected nodes, almost like a web, kind of mimicking neurons in the brain.
You're on the right track. These artificial neural networks are loosely modeled after how the human brain is structured, and they're driving a lot of the recent breakthroughs in AI.
But it's still just math, right? Not actual thinking or feeling.
Precisely. It's basically a very simplified mathematical model inspired by how the brain is structured, not by its consciousness or emotions or anything like that. These models are incredibly powerful, but they're still just crunching numbers and finding patterns in the data we feed them.
So we've got this crazy, powerful technology driven by complex math and supercharged GPUs that's learning and changing incredibly fast. But where is it all actually going? I mean, this report lists all these industries that are being transformed. Finance, healthcare, even your field is being affected, right?
Absolutely. And this brings up a very important point. We should be thinking about AI as augmented intelligence, not just a replacement for human intelligence. The report talks about radiologists, for example. AI is helping them analyze medical images, detect anomalies faster, and make more accurate diagnoses. It's not about replacing doctors, though. It's about giving them powerful new tools.
That makes a lot of sense. So it's like having AI as a superpowered assistant, right? Helping us do our jobs better, maybe even do things we couldn't do before, kind of like having a second set of eyes that never get tired and can pick up on all the little details.
Exactly. It's all about humans and AI working together to get better outcomes. And that's where we see some of the most exciting things happening.
So we've gone over the basics of what AI is, how it's different from, the science fiction version. We talked about why it's blowing up right now, even how it works on like a basic level. But you also sent over this article about something called OpenAI's O1. What is that all about?
Okay, so OpenAI's O1, that represents a big step forward in AI development. Remember how we were talking about how ANI is focused on specific tasks? Well, O1 is still ANI, but it's designed to think before it speaks. Basically, it spends more time analyzing a problem, thinking about different ways to solve it before giving an answer.
So it's trying to be more like a human would solve a problem.
Exactly. And the results are pretty impressive. That article mentions O1 scored in something like the 93rd percentile on the A. That's that really hard high school math competition, by the way. And get this, it's actually doing better than experts in certain science tests.
Wow, that's wild. So is O1 like that, that genius kid in class who aces every test? What can this thing actually do?
Haha, that's a pretty good comparison, actually. The article talks about how O1 is really strong in STEM fields. It can do crazy hard math problems, understand really complicated science stuff, and even write really good computer code.
That coding part is super interesting. Does that mean this thing could actually design like apps and stuff?
It's getting close. The article says that O1's coding is already at a very high level. And remember, it's learning more all the time.
But if AI is getting this good at math and science and even coding, what does that mean for, well, for us? Where does that leave everyone else?
That, my friend, is the million-dollar question. And with every new AI breakthrough, it gets even more important to ask. We're
Yeah.
essentially building a plane while we're flying it.
Yikes. It's almost like we're giving these AI models all the tools to potentially change entire industries, maybe even the world. But who gets to decide how those tools get used? That's a lot of power.
You're right. And that is exactly the ethical dilemma we're facing. Remember that O1 article talked about this.
Yeah.
It emphasized how important responsible AI development is. If these models can solve problems we thought only humans could solve, we need to be very careful about what they can do.
Yeah. It's a lot to think about. On one hand, there's this incredible potential for awesome progress, like in medicine, technology, all sorts of areas. But on the other hand, there's uncertainty, maybe even a little fear about what happens when AI gets even smarter.
It's that mix of excitement and caution that makes this such a crucial time. It's not enough to just watch AI evolve. We have to help shape how it evolves. And that means asking some really tough questions.
Like, what does it even mean to create AI responsibly? What needs to be done to keep things safe? And how do we make sure that everybody benefits from AI and that it doesn't just make existing inequalities worse?
You're asking the right questions. Unfortunately, there aren't any easy answers. It's going to take ongoing discussions and a really careful thought, and not just from tech people, but from everyone. We need ethicists, philosophers, social scientists, policymakers, and regular people like you and me to weigh in on these issues.
This is way bigger than just, will robots take my job? It's about what it means to be human when we have these increasingly intelligent machines around.
You got it. AI isn't some far-off fantasy anymore. It's here, it's changing fast, and it's making us ask big questions about ourselves, our values, and our place in the world.
That's a lot to process for sure.
Mm.
We've gone from talking about a simple chatbot experience to the potential for whole industries to be transformed. We've even touched on some of the ethical issues that come with such massive advances.
It has been quite a journey, and for everyone listening, this isn't just about understanding AI, it's about really engaging with it and having a say in how it shapes our future. The future of AI isn't set in stone. It's being decided right now, and we're all a part of that. So stay curious, stay informed, and keep asking those thought-provoking questions. It really is a pivotal time for this stuff, this whole building the plane while flying it thing, like the source says. Pretty good way to describe where we are with AI.
Yeah, a little scary when you put it like that, knowing we're figuring things out as we go. But I guess that's why it's even more important to be having these chats, right?
You got it.
Hmm.
We've got to be really thoughtful about the impact AI could have, the good and the bad. And one thing that's important to remember is that AI isn't just one thing. There are all different kinds of AI, and they all have their own strengths and weaknesses.
Right, like we were talking about earlier with AGI and ANI, and even within ANI, there's like a whole range of complexity.
Exactly. And this O1 thing with this thinking before speaking ability, it's really pushing the limits of what we thought AI could do, shows just how fast AI research is moving.
It's interesting you keep saying think before it speaks. It almost sounds like it's doing it on purpose, like humans do.
I see what you mean. AI is starting to blur the lines between what we thought only humans could do and what machines can do. But we can't forget that O1, even though it's really impressive, it's still ANI. It's not conscious or anything. It's really good at recognizing patterns and solving specific kinds of problems.
So how does this whole thinking before speaking thing actually work? Can you give an example?
Sure. Let's look at how O1 writes code, since the article talked about how good it is at that. AI models in the past, they could create little bits of code or simple programs, but O1 goes way beyond that. It can look at a really complicated programming job, break it down into steps, and then write the code for each step, kind of like how a human programmer would.
Wow, that's amazing. So it really is like it's thinking through the problem, trying different things, then choosing the best solution and writing code for it.
That's a good way to think about it. It's not exactly human thought, but AI is getting to the point where it can be as thoughtful and flexible as humans in how it solves problems.
That's really cool, but also a little creepy when you really think about it. If it can already code that well, what happens when it starts designing its own AI? That just seems kind of, I don't know, unstoppable.
It's a valid concern. It's at the heart of a lot of the ethical questions we have about developing AI. As we build these powerful systems, we have to really think about the consequences they could have, good and bad.
Like they say, with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly. And that's why we can't talk about AI just from a technical point of view.
Yeah.
We need ethicists, philosophers, social scientists, everyone really, to make sure we're developing and using AI in a way that benefits everyone.
I agree. It's not just about the tech itself. It's about how we use it and what kind of future we want to create with it. But okay, let's get back to the present. The report mentions how AI is changing a bunch of industries, but it also talks about how AI can be used to help people, not just replace them. What does that mean?
Right. So one of the best things about AI is that it can make humans smarter and more capable. This isn't just about automating stuff. It's about human creativity and intuition, working with AI's ability to crunch huge amounts of data and see patterns we might miss.
Okay, so it's not about humans versus machines, but about finding ways for them to work together.
Exactly. Think of it as a team, where each side has its own strengths. For example, in medicine, AI can analyze tons of data, like medical images or patient records, that can help doctors find patterns and potential problems that they might not see otherwise.
So it's like AI isn't replacing the doctor, it's giving them like a superpower.
Exactly. It helps humans to make better decisions, not cut them out entirely.
That's good to know, especially with everyone talking about how AI is going to take everyone's jobs. This is a much more optimistic way to look at it, I think.
It's about finding that balance, taking advantage of what AI can do, but also remembering that it's not perfect. And there are downsides too.
For sure. Which kind of brings us back to that idea of developing AI responsibly. We've talked about it a bit, but how do we actually make it happen? What can we do?
That's the million-dollar question. And there's no easy answer. It'll take everyone working together, researchers, policymakers, people in the industry, and just regular folks too.
So it's not just about some new rule or law. It's about changing how we think about AI as a society.
Exactly. We need to make ethical considerations part of every step. The design, the way we use it, even keeping an eye on things after it's out there.
That makes sense. But that sounds like a huge job. How do we even start?
One big thing is making sure that AI development is transparent and accountable. Right now, a lot of these AI systems are like black boxes, even to the people who make them. We need to be able to understand how they're making decisions so we can catch any bias or problems.
So it's about like understanding the engine, not just being impressed by the shiny paint job.
Right. And that's super important for building trust in AI, but also to make sure it's used ethically.
It feels like we're barely scratching the surface here. This isn't just about the techie stuff anymore. It's about our values, what we think is right and wrong, and the kind of future we want.
You nailed it. The future of AI is up in the air. What we do today is shaping it, and we all need to be a part of those decisions and conversations.
That's a powerful thought. We started with talking about how AI works, and now we're talking about its impact on society and what it even means to be human.
It's been great diving into this stuff with you today, and for everyone listening, remember, the future of AI isn't something to be afraid of. It's something we can shape if we do it together.
I love that. We hope this deep dive helped you understand AI better and got you thinking about its place in our lives. Keep asking those tough questions and stay curious.